the new Wagner commander has taken action again in order to complete the coup that Prigozhin left unfinished.
Viewers and subscribers, welcome once again to Think Tank TV. Now, after the death of the former Wagner leader, which many believe was allegedly masterminded by Putin, the president of Russia, Putin's hope of gaining full control of the Wagner group seems to have met a brick wall, as the new Wagner leader seems to be taking advantage of the hardship the sanctions on Russia has brought to the Russian citizens to gain massive support. Yes, the presence of the anti-Putin generals in the Russian army and the Wagner forces around the Russian borders have made Putin to become nervous of a possible coup against his government. In this video, we shall be analyzing the reports about the alleged latest assassination plot against Putin and the $20 million bounty placed on his head by the new Wagner leader. Please do want to hit the comment section and let's get to know what your thinking is about the war in Russia and Ukraine, and we are going to be continually here to serve you. Don't go anywhere, I'll be coming back to wrap up the video. My name is Moses and this is Think Tank TV.
Russian leader Vladimir Putin is cornered. The new Wagner commander who appeared caused a great panic in the Kremlin palace. Vladimir Putin, who thought that he would gain control of the Wagner army after the death of Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, made a big mistake. Andrei Belyakov, who has taken command as the new leader of the Wagner army, has taken action against Putin. Along with the upheavals that have taken place within the Russian army, Putin's authority of the people has suffered a major blow. It turned out that the new Wagner commander, Andrei Belyakov, who wants to turn this situation into an opportunity, has formed a new assassination squad in Russia. The discovery that Wagner commander Belyakov, who wanted to eliminate Vladimir Putin, was plotting to assassinate Putin, led to a red alert being issued in the Kremlin. The Russian leader has decided on an urgent meeting with Russian General Gerasimov. The war between Russia and Ukraine, which has been going on for 19 months, has now reached a much different dimension. This war is no longer just deconflicting between Russia and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin, who has made many enemies during the war, now has to face these enemies one by one. The groupings that have begun to form within the Russian armed forces have caused the army to be divided into two. The presence of a large number of anti-Putin soldiers and generals in the army leads to instability of the Russian army. Putin, who is blamed for the death of Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, is very nervous about a new coup attempt against him. The formations of the Wagner army within the borders of Russia and its men within the state have become a big problem for Vladimir Putin. Putin, who wants to uproot the Wagner army, was surprised by what he suffered when he saw the new commander, Andrei Belyakov, in front of him. Andrei Belyakov, who had been fighting alongside the Wagner army for many years, began to show himself after the Wagner leader Prigozhin lost his life. Belyakov, who served as a Wagner army commander on the territory of Ukraine, was assuming command of 4 different Wagner troops. Served as a Wagner army commander on the territory of Ukraine, was assuming command of 4 different Wagner troops. However, after Prigozhin's death, Belyakov realized that Wagner's soldiers were getting out of control, so he took command in order to restore order. Wagner commander, who made a statement just 2 days after taking command, targeted Russian leader Vladimir Putin with this statement. Belyakov said that in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, Ukraine is very close to winning this war, and the unwillingness of Russian soldiers to fight will bring the end of Putin, adding that Putin thinks only decently of his own interests. Belyakov, who stated that Vladimir Putin recruited tens of thousands of Russian citizens into the army at his own request and sent them to die on Ukrainian soil, addressed the Russian soldiers fighting in Ukraine and stated that they should unite against Putin. The well-known Wagner army, one of the largest military forces of the Russian army, has now reappeared as a major force against Russia. The events that happened after these statements by Wagner commander Belyakov were much more interesting. After Prigozhin lost his life, Wagner army headquarters were closed one by one, and Wagner soldiers who did not want to join the Russian army began to be arrested. Wagner commander Belyakov was very angry. Thus, the Wagner commander has taken action to take revenge on Putin, who has displayed aggressive attitudes towards the Wagner army. These tensions between the Kremlin administration and the Wagner army caused the Wagner army to re-enter the borders of Russia. thousands of Wagner soldiers left the territory of Belarus and began to return to Russia again. The new Wagner commander Andrei Belyakov began to make great preparations using the front companies of the Wagner mercenary company within the borders of Russia. Organizations and formations affiliated with the Wagner company became the biggest supporters of Wagner soldiers returning to Russia. But the statements of the Russian intelligence service, Sergei Narishkin, changed everything. Things became much more complicated when Wagner soldiers who returned to Russia announced that they had not returned with good intentions and that assassination and sabotage teams, consisting of Wagner soldiers, had been established within Moscow's borders. Very soon after this announcement, the first assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin was carried out. As it is known, due to the unrest in Russia, Putin has increased the number of guards around him by 4 times. Wagner commander Belyakov was aware that it was impossible to decapitate Putin from among these guards. For this reason, he followed a much different strategy. A group of Wagner soldiers were constantly following Vladimir Putin's everyday life and taking notes about them. Wagner soldiers, who even memorized the routes that Putin used during the day, noticed that Putin passed through the same route twice every day. Thereupon, Wagner soldiers made the decision to place plastic explosives on a critical route such as the Moscow Bridge. Wagner soldiers, who took action late at night, planted explosives at the main points of the bridge. Now all they had to do was wait for it to be morning and for Putin to cross this bridge. Wagner's new commander, Belyakov, was confident that he would eliminate Putin. However, things did not go as planned. Some Wagner soldiers who previously served in the Wagner army and joined the Russian army after the coup still have communication with the Wagner army. Wagner soldiers in the Russian army informed the army generals about Belyakov's assassination plan against Putin. On top of this, Russian leader Vladimir Putin was kept in a secret house with high-level security measures all day. Soon after, interestingly, bomb disposal experts arrived at the Moscow Bridge where the explosives were placed. Bomb disposal experts who defused the explosives seized 6 remotely controlled plastic explosives. Thus, the assassination plan planned by Wagner commander Belyakov against Putin fell through. As it is known, the Wagner army received the greatest support from Vladimir Putin during the time it was fighting on the territory of Ukraine. Putin did not hesitate to spend even the resources allocated to the army for the Wagner army. Many Russian economists have stated many times that close to 50% of the state treasury has been emptied and this money has been spent on the war. However, looking at the budget allocated to the Russian army, it does not seem that the government spends so much on the military. Thus, it began to be suspected that these monies in the state treasury were spent on the Wagner army. Thanks to the Wagner company's shell companies in Russia, Putin was able to transfer all the state's resources to the Wagner army. Wagner's army was actively operating within the borders of Russia, even before the beginning of the war. This mercenary company, which is known to have some illegal formations, has been cooperating with Putin for many years. However, during the 19-month war, Wagner's army became much stronger both within the army and the state. The interesting thing is that the Russian people give so much support to the Wagner army. Before Yevgeny Prigozhin lost his life, the coup attempt he tried to make in Russia had received great support from the people. As Wagner's soldiers marched through the streets of Rostov and Voronezh, armed in their hands, the Russian people felt liberated. The biggest reason for this is the dictatorial and aggressive policies that Russian leader Vladimir Putin has been implementing against his own people for many years. The Russian people, tired of Putin's pressures and manipulations, are now looking for a new savior for themselves. This savior is seen as the Wagner army. The new commander of Wagner, Andrei Belyakov, is able to act so comfortably in Russia because he is aware that the Russian people support the Wagner army.
You've seen it for yourself. Now, the truth of the matter is that killing a person will actually not put an end to an ambition that they passed on. Notice I'm not using the word vision because obviously vision must be something that brings positivity to the people. It's obvious that Putin actually thought that killing the former Wagner leader was going to bring an end to the leadership tussle in the Wagner group. But obviously, the new Wagner leader seems to be following through the steps of his predecessor, as obvious in his statement. In his statement not long ago when he assumed office, he said a very shocking statement to Russians and the whole world at large, where he made bold to say that in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, Ukraine is very close to winning the war, and the unwillingness of the Russian soldier to fight will bring an end to Putin. Wow, remarkable indeed. Please, let's get to know what your thought is in the comment section, as we'll be here to continually serve you. My name is Moses and this is Think Tank TV. Thank you so much to all our viewers and returning subscribers. We do not take it lightly. Do well to sit back and expect our next videos.